I go by the name Faye, and my role revolves around administrative duties at a medical office within a university setting. I tied the knot with a gentleman named Stephen, anticipating that it marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. Little did I foresee that our matrimonial journey would prove to be short-lived. The inception of our relationship painted Stephen as a kind, family-oriented, and decisive individual. He had been employed as a manager at a home improvement store since our dating days. Confidently proposing to me, I readily accepted, perceiving him as a dependable and reliable partner. Upon our marriage, Stephen, who had previously resided with his parents, moved into our shared living space. Despite our hectic work schedules, we managed to synchronize our days off and began planning our honeymoon. Initially, discussions about it were exciting, and I felt genuinely content with my decision to marry Stephen. However, over time, the dynamics shifted. Our residence, a 2-year-old, 3-bedroom apartment, was new but situated a bit far from the city, lacking the opulence of a high-rise dwelling, yet it was affordable. Considering the comfort it provided, I decided to take the plunge and make the purchase, finding it suitable for both of us. One day, Stephen informed me that his mother and sister intended to visit our new home the next day. My initial reaction was a pang of frustration, as I believed he should have discussed the date with me beforehand. Despite Stephen being off work the following day, I had professional commitments. His decisiveness, while commendable, sometimes disregarded my feelings. Expressing my concern about being at work, Stephen casually replied, "That's fine. We'll just look around the house a bit, and that should be it." Agreeing, I assumed it would be a brief visit. However, upon returning home from work the next evening, I was met with a lively atmosphere. The scent of delicious food filled the air, and as I entered the living room, I found Stephen, my mother-in-law, and sister-in-law joyously indulging in the preparations they had made. Perplexed, I blurted out, "What's going on?" My slightly tipsy mother-in-law greeted me enthusiastically. "Oh, Faye, you're home. Done with work? You've been working hard." My sister-in-law looked at me cheerfully and said, "Hey, Buffet, you must be tired. But wow, this house is amazing. It's not fair that you get to live in such a place." Stephen joined in the fun, and I found myself the only one in the room who was out of the loop. Trying not to upset them, I asked, "I was told you were coming for a house tour, but did you plan on having dinner as well?" This wasn't what Stephen had communicated to me, and I felt a bit upset. With a smile, Stephen casually replied, My mom and sister said they had plenty of time, so we thought, why not have dinner?" It seemed he was considering their time, not mine, and I wanted to express that. While I don't dislike my mother-in-law or sister-in-law, I didn't want to be on my toes in my own home. However, Stephen explained, "My dad is not around anymore, and it's always just the two of them. They need a change of scenery once in a while," in a carefree manner. His mother-in-law chimed in, saying, "Stephen is such a kind boy, Faye. You should appreciate that you got to marry Stephen," as if I were being taken care of by him. Wanting to retort, "I'm working and earning too, you know," I thought it might be okay to let them have a family dinner once in a while. So I decided to step back. They had bought the groceries and prepared the meal themselves. However, my mother-in-law said something that left me shocked. "But this fridge is stocked with good meat. High-quality meat really is delicious," she exclaimed, clearly indicating they were using our groceries. The alcohol and snacks my sister-in-law enjoyed were exactly the ones we had bought. When I asked about it, my mother-in-law responded, "Well, if you have this much in the fridge, there's no need to go shopping, right? It's a hassle to go to the supermarket without any remorse." To add insult to injury, she added, "I'm tired now, so if you want to eat something, Faye, you'll have to make it yourself." I was genuinely angry at this whole conversation, and my emotions were threatening to spill out. Despite that, I managed to suppress my anger and respond with a strange smile, saying, "Is that so? Well, I'll take care of my portion then," and headed to my room. It seemed some of my emotions may have leaked out, as when I closed the living room door, it made a slightly louder bang than I intended. Immediately after, I could vaguely hear my mother-in-law and sister-in-law talking. "Oh my, is she always this rough? Is she okay?" My sister-in-law wondered. Despite being in such a nice house, she questioned, "I wonder if Faye won't end up breaking something, right, Stephen?" Casually responding, Stephen said, "I'll remind her later. She's probably just tired from work." After all that, my in-laws left without cleaning up. To make matters worse, Stephen even came to my room and lightly scolded me, saying, "Hey, what's with all the irritation?" It's not fair to criticize my in-laws, but honestly, having everything done without my permission and then leaving without cleaning up was too much for me to bear. When I expressed my frustration to Stephen, he tried to pacify me, saying, "Well, calm down. This is a one-time thing. I'll take care of the cleaning, just relax." Despite his attempt to reassure me, I wasn't entirely convinced. However, I decided it wasn't worth picking a fight over and managed to suppress my anger, chalking it up to part of Stephen's family love. I forced myself to think about our upcoming honeymoon and lifted my spirits, convincing myself that such incidents wouldn't happen again. However, our honeymoon turned out to bring misfortune. A month later, we went on a planned 3-night trip to Alaska. Although I wouldn't have minded going overseas, Stephen didn't have a taste for luxury and preferred staying within the country. The hotel we booked was decent, and we enjoyed the cuisine, hot springs, and northern lights, spending wonderful days. As our delightful journey was coming to an end, we talked about making future plans. However, just as we were about to arrive home, I remembered something. I wondered if I had locked the bathroom window before leaving. Living on the 4th floor of an apartment building, the small window seemed secure, but I couldn't shake the thought. Mentioning this to Stephen, he casually responded, "It'll be fine. My mother and sister are there." I was perplexed, as I hadn't heard about this arrangement. Stephen calmly explained, "Oh, didn't I tell you? They said they'd clean up while we're away. It's really helpful, you know. Dust piles up after 3 or 4 days." Learning that he had given the house keys to my mother-in-law without my knowledge upset me again. From then on, I barely spoke to Stephen and hurried home faster than usual, anxious about what might be happening in our house. Upon arriving home and entering the living room, they were having another party, and dishes made from food likely taken from our refrigerator were lined up. Nonchalantly, my mother-in-law called out, "Oh, you're back. Did you have a good time?" I was in no state to give her a proper answer. Despite her claim about cleaning up, the place was messier than before, and there seemed to be even more bags from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Seeing all that, I could almost hear the last straw breaking inside me. Enough was enough. I found myself unable to contain my frustrations any longer, blurting out, "What are you doing? Please go home. This is our house, and it's a problem if you keep doing as you please." My mother-in-law responded, saying, "Okay, why are you so upset? I'm in no position to say that. This is Stephen's house, so there should be no problem with whatever we, as his family, do." My sister-in-law chimed in arrogantly, saying, "That's right, Faye. If anything, we should have more right to live here than you." I couldn't understand their way of thinking and asserted, "Hey, I'm paying for this house too, you know. It's my house as well. So I need you to get my permission too." I was filled with a feeling that I didn't want to hold back anymore, and there was also concern that if I didn't retort, they would get carried away. What further fueled my frustration was the unexpected response from Stephen. He said, "Hey, Faye, you need to stop. How can you speak to my family like that? We're all going to live here from now on. Don't be so selfish." Stunned momentarily by his words, I couldn't believe that living with these in-laws was decided without my knowledge again. In response to Stephen, I retorted, "So why do you decide on your own without telling me? Can't you consult with me at least once? Who's being selfish here? Don't be ridiculous." The cheerful atmosphere from our honeymoon trip vanished, and the room turned into a battlefield. Stephen, as always, put an end to the tension, saying, "Enough. If you hate living here so much, Faye, you can leave. His words had the opposite effect on me. They calmed me down. I realized I couldn't continue living with these people, and if that was the case, there was no reason for me to stick around with Stephen and the others. I could have questioned Stephen's assertion, but my desire to avoid further involvement was stronger, so I casually said, all the while grinning, "Okay, got it. I'll be out of here in no time." My mother-in-law and sister-in-law may not have understood why I was smirking, but they would find out eventually. Shortly afterward, I packed only the essentials and left the house. Though Stephen urged me to cool off for a while, I had no intention of returning. He seemed to think I would come back. I contacted my parents, asked to stay with them temporarily, initiated divorce preparations, and started searching for a new place to live. Stephen attempted to call me a few times, but I ignored him, busy with various things. After about 2 months, I settled into my new place. Remembering that I still had belongings at the house I shared with Stephen, I decided to take his call for the first time in a while. And right away, I could sense the panic in his voice as he pleaded, "Faye, what are you doing? Come back now." Stephen seemed to think I was returning, so I firmly responded, "No, I'm not coming back. Actually, I've already filed the divorce petition and consulted a lawyer. Let's talk about the property division." His stunned reaction revealed that he hadn't anticipated this development. In a state of disbelief, he exclaimed, "Huh, divorce? Please not that. I can't deal with that right now." His plea became even more frantic. Frankly, I had a good idea of what was going on, so when I asked what the matter was, he confessed, "I'm broke. I'm already in debt, so come back quickly." As expected, he must have thought I would return, assuming he could afford to kick me out. However, he was wrong. Stephen wasn't earning much. I estimated his take-home pay at around $2,000 a month. The monthly mortgage for the condo we bought was also $2,000. While I contributed $1,500, he only put in $500. Covering all other expenses, including utilities and groceries, was possible because of my higher income. Even our honeymoon had to be modest due to his financial constraints. Realizing that he lacked expensive tastes, but simply couldn't afford them, I understood that once I left, he had to manage on his own. The condo was in his name, and the payments were withdrawn from his account. Losing my $1,500 contribution each month left him financially strained, especially with his jobless mother-in-law and sister-in-law living with him. Given the circumstances, it was natural for me to be upset when he made unilateral decisions about the house or used items from the fridge casually. With just his salary, their expenses wouldn't last a month. Drowning in debt seemed inevitable at this rate. My mother, furious about the situation, implored me, asking, "Why did you kick Faye out? Come back home right away and do something." I found myself speechless as it became apparent that Stephen's mother and sister were under the mistaken impression that he earned a decent living. Despite his title as a store manager, the reality was that this designation didn't necessarily equate to a high salary. We had purchased a somewhat decent condo, and they entirely believed that Stephen was the primary contributor, which was both pitiful and foolish. To make matters worse, it turned out that his mother-in-law, having exhausted her deceased husband's assets, ended up broke and moved into my house. She and her daughter had terminated their rented apartment lease. It was moments like these that left me mortified to have any familial ties with them, and I was eager to finalize our divorce as quickly as possible. Upon expressing my desire to proceed with the divorce, Stephen agreed readily, stating that all he needed to do was fill out the paperwork with his lawyer and send it back to the court. Our divorce was finalized without any issues, and I returned to my previous residence to organize my belongings. After completing the shipping procedures for my luggage, Stephen, in the presence of his mother and sister, thanked me, saying, "Phew, you really saved me, Faye. I'm already $10,000 in debt, and it's going to increase by another $5,000 this month if things continue as they are." I was shocked at the speed with which he accumulated debt. Apparently, his mother and sister had extremely poor spending habits and were grinning while relying on my wallet. In response, I suggested, "How about your mother and sister start working? If 3 people work, it will somehow work out, right?" Stephen and his mother were caught off guard by this proposal, and Stephen asked, "Aren't you going to help us out?" To this, I calmly replied, "What's that supposed to mean? Why should I pay for your living expenses? Earn your own share." I didn't say I would pay. I said I would think about it. Leaving them in a state of confusion and creating a ruckus, I asserted, "I'm not your daughter-in-law anymore, so good luck." I got into my car and left my former residence. Eventually, Stephen's mother and sister reluctantly started looking for work, but due to their laziness, they didn't get far. Meanwhile, the loans kept coming, and living expenses piled up. Despite this, they maintained extravagant tastes, and Stephen's debt continued to increase. In stark contrast, I could finally use the money I earned for myself, enjoying hobbies and traveling. Leading a fulfilling life motivated me even more at work. One day, a doctor at work approached me and remarked, "You're really glowing recently, Faye." This encounter led to us dating, further enriching my daily life.